Everybody, welcome to this video on Steve Ramsey Plus. How do you like that I have a plus channel?
Everybody needs one.
Anyways, uh, I've got Ethan James with me today from the Honest Carpenter channel, and we're going to talk horror movies because that's what we like to do.
Well, we do when we're not making construction and woodworking videos.
I know we'll text back and forth each other. Oh man, you don't believe the movie I just saw, and here we go. So it's Halloween season. We're not going to be talking about woodworking or carpentry or anything, but scary movies, and give you our recommendations for what you might want to take a look at. And if I could start by saying, I think 2022 has been an amazing year for horror movies. I think that this will be one of those years that people look back on and say, well, that was pretty good in horror back in 2022.
I think so. Yeah, I would agree. A couple entries recently that I'm sure we'll get into, but I've been enjoying the box office this year, especially, I mean, we're still post-pandemic here and the industry is still like revving back up. So hopefully it's a sign of things to come.
Yeah, I hope so too. I think a lot of people who aren't really into horror, they don't really realize where horror is today and what kind of things are being done in horror. And I think it's just such an amazing time. If your idea of horror movies are 80s slashers, which I love also.
Yeah, nothing wrong with that.
It's come a long way since then, and there's a lot more variety now. And I guess the first one I could start off with this year is two films, and I don't know if you've seen these. I hope you have. Is X
Let's
and
see.
Pearl.
Okay, saw X
You
and
haven't
loved
seen
X.
Pearl? You haven't seen
Have
Pearl
not
yet?
seen Pearl yet. No.
So here's the thing: is that X came out earlier this year. Both of these movies are going to be on my top 10 list of the year, but X was so hard edged, which I really liked, and it's by the guy Ty West who made I think one of your favorite films,
House of the Devil.
House of the Devil. Yeah,
Yes.
I love that movie.
Yeah. And it's very dissimilar. It's not like House of the Devil, and Pearl
No,
is definitely not like House of the Devil, just from what I've seen of it. So he's expanded outwards for sure in the way he's approaching his films, but he is one of my favorite horror directors.
so in X, it's like this. It takes place in the 70s, and it's like this low budget. Well, I guess all these porn films being made in the 70s were really low budget, but
Yeah,
they got a camera and a sound person, and they're gonna we're gonna make some porn out at this farmhouse, and then the shit goes down, and people start dying, and
yeah,
it sounds very cliche, but it's not. There's a lot of twists and turns in that you weren't expecting. And at the very end of it, there was a teaser to the next movie, Pearl, which is a prequel that actually came out the same year, which is unprecedented. They shot them back to back. The Ty West. Okay, so these are A24 films. A24,
A24, right?
one of my favorite movie studios and distributors. And he was shooting this thing during the pandemic down in New Zealand, Australia. And he was like, this is really a cool film. I think I got a prequel idea we could do. And A24 was like greenlit it. They're like, yeah, man, just do it. And so he had the sets and everything. And so now on IMDb, Pearl is actually sitting at a higher rating
And that,
than X, which I can believe it. I actually prefer Pearl, the second film, to the first film, which is, how often does that happen?
not often. I'm gonna have to watch it then because I'll admit, like I was heavily skeptical when I saw the stinger at the end of X. I thought it was a gag. I was like, okay,
Yeah.
here's something like a little filler at the end just to like get a laugh, and then of course immediately heard that it was like in like post production or something by that time, and I was like, I have no idea why, if you have, as Ty West probably does with A24, this carpet rolled out in front of them, they're like, you can do whatever you want within reason. It seemed like the strangest jump for me to pick this one a pretty central character to X and dig into this like Oklahoma style historical
Yeah, it's like
musical.
1918 or something it takes
Yeah,
place.
I mean it's like the Great War era, and I mean it made like no sense. So I have held off from seeing it. You now I have to see it because I'm going to take the word for it.
Yes.
And I know, like, who was it? Martin Scorsese or someone jumped in the week of the release, and I think he said a lot about it, but he was like, "This movie's disturbing on every level imaginable." So,
Yeah, it's a good one, and just the acting. Oh my God, Mia Goth is so
yeah,
good, and the ending of this movie, it's got just a single shot that holds for it must be 4 or 5 minutes,
I
and
think I've heard that.
it is the best. It is so cool. I can't recommend it enough. Um,
And
mhm.
there's going to be like a
There's a third one.
like Maxine.
Maxine. This one's going to take place in the 80s. So, and it's also been like just rushed. They're like, A24, they know how to make movies. So they're like,
Yeah,
yes, this thing is hitting on all cylinders. Do it. Do the third one right now.
yeah, yeah. They become like the gorilla big studio. It's I
Yeah.
mean they're not Warner Brothers or like Paramount or
No.
anything, but like they're moving as fast and almost as recklessly as you can, and everything's working basically.
Right. And you see, they started by like, they would go to these film festivals and they would pick out movies that they thought were just these low budget films. They thought, this is a true vision. And then they would buy it up and distribute it so that they know what they're looking for. They're like highly curated movies that they
Yeah,
do.
and they had I mean talk about a big year for them. They also had a Everything Everywhere All at Once, not a horror movie, but like
Yeah.
that thing went like supernova when it came out, and I saw it and loved it. So
Yeah.
A24, it's almost like they can do no wrong at this point.
It's so true. In fact, I even signed up for there's like the A24 plus. Everything's
Oh yeah,
plus. So, but they have where they send you out this zine every month of
no
whatever
way.
film they're doing, and I got like a A24 beach towel. I don't know. It's just a dumb thing. I just kind of
I
want to
want one of
support
those.
them.
Yeah, I might have to sign up. Jeez.
So, what else you seen this year?
um, Nope. I just
Nope. God, I
I
haven't
love.
seen it yet. I have
Oh
not
my
seen Nope
gosh,
yet.
I was floored by it, and then I was surprised when a handful of my friends who love horror movies liked it, but didn't seem as crazy about it as I was. I mean, I think for me it cemented Jordan Peele as like I don't think anyone's better than him these days.
Hmm.
Like on so many levels, it's just the most brilliant piece of filmmaking that I've seen in horror for a long time. Which is interesting because it's also very campy.
Yeah,
It's like
I've heard that.
yeah, it's like people kind of had criticisms of it, and I was like, I think this film is beyond criticism because it's this massive combination of classy and campy. So
Hmm.
like it's too classy to write it off, and it's too campy to take it completely seriously. It's like he really kind of locked in this place in between where you can love or hate it, but I see it as almost like unassailable
Hmm.
at what it does well. So you're gonna have to watch, man. I won't tell you much
Oh
about it,
yeah.
but
How does
I
it compare to the other two films of his? How would you rank it?
it's different. I just watched Us. I didn't see Us when it came out. I didn't see it until like sometime this year, probably.
Hmm.
Really liked it. Serious, hard hitting, very dark. Most of it
Hmm.
takes place at night. Oh man,
Yeah,
my fridge is. Can you hear that?
I do. It's all right. Nobody's gonna watch
Something's wrong
this.
with my fridge. I can unplug it in a second if it does it again.
Don't
But
worry about it.
um, this one is much more lighthearted. What was his first film? Why am I blanking on this?
Get Out.
Get Out. Okay,
Hmm.
it's pretty different from both, even though
Really?
it has our Get Out actor in it. But I like to compare movies to movies. Like when I was like halfway through Nope, I was like, this movie's like a mashup of Tremors, Signs, and Once Upon a Time in Hollywood.
No.
It has like
Nice.
the bleak desert landscape of Tremors, kind of a
Yeah.
creature, the alien um, threat of
Yeah.
Signs, and then this awesome inside Hollywood storyline with the family. So I mean, I loved it.
Wow, there's comedians though making these films now. Chris
I
Rock,
know.
did you see the new Spiral? It was like a type of Saw movie, or it's like from the
With
book of
Chris Rock,
Saw, they
right?
call it.
I haven't watched it yet.
Yeah. Most people I don't think cared a lot for it, but I liked it a lot. I think if you like, to me, those had gotten, or at least that isn't necessarily a horror movie as much as it is like a gritty police drama with
Okay.
horror elements. I guess Saw films are kind of like that in a way.
Yeah, it seemed kind of like a psycho thriller or something when I watched
Hmm.
the preview, and I like movies like that periodically, kind of like where one person is just drastically tormenting another person
Yeah.
or a family or something. It gets worse and worse and worse. You know,
Oh
sometimes I'm
yeah.
in the mood for it. Sometimes I'm not. Sometimes like I don't feel like dealing with that drama. You know? It's not like a creature feature, but I should check it out, especially since Chris Rock's in it, and I think it's like his horror debut as far as
It
I'm concerned.
is. Yeah,
Okay.
it's pretty cool. And Samuel L. Jackson's in it a little bit. And,
Okay.
can't go wrong with him. Here's a movie I want to warn you to avoid. And I don't usually do this for movies, but
Wow.
this one was such a disappointment for me. And
Wow.
that's The Munsters, the
I
new Rob Zombie movie.
I didn't watch it. I haven't seen it yet.
I thought, because I kept reading these reviews and everybody was like, "Oh my God, this is bad," and it's PG. It's not even PG-13, and he's trying to make it like a kids film, but I can't imagine it appealing to kids, and it doesn't appeal to adults. And oh my God, it just felt like it was never going to end. It was just so tedious, and I love Rob Zombie. I
I
was
know.
just
I
so
know you did.
disappointed, but this has to be like my worst horror movie of the year.
Man, okay, so I think I texted you over the summer. I went to a Rob Zombie show down in
Yeah,
Charlotte, like 2 months ago or something, and loved it. Like, had a blast. He was great. The stage setup's crazy elaborate. He's got all these like satanic pulpits and stuff that are like 12 feet tall, like
yeah,
monsters, massive monsters are like walking around the stage, and he's got Johnny Five on guitar these days. But like right before, it's like he took a intermission really late in the show. I guess they were gearing up for the closing number and encore and everything, and they screened the Munsters trailer
yeah,
at the show, like on
yeah,
his massive screen setup in the back, and everyone just kind of sat there quietly through this like 3 minute trailer for the
yeah.
Munsters, like in the middle of a Rob Zombie concert, and it just
Oh.
I don't know, it maybe it kind of put me off a little bit the fact that I saw the trailer at the show, so I haven't seen it yet, and
Yeah, well, the trailer was so kind of cringe, and
yeah,
everybody thought, well, maybe that's just the trailer. Maybe that's, but no, it was. I
is
just,
it is it like tanking? Like, did it make any money?
I don't know. I don't know how it's doing. I mean, it was like trending on Netflix. I don't know what that means if they put anything on there, whatever.
Yeah,
But
right.
maybe people were hate watching it or something. But it just seemed like if they had trimmed a half hour out of it, they could have easily tightened it up and made it more interesting. I like that he has like this really interesting color palette, kind of going for this '60s vibe, I guess, of
Right.
this thing. But the most of the movie, and see, I follow him on Instagram, and I watched him as he was building Mockingbird Lane with
Yeah.
the house and all the other houses on the street. This is all in Hungary or someplace, Bulgaria. I don't know where this was
Right.
built.
Yeah, I forget where it was. You're right. It
And
was
I
like
thought,
somewhere
oh
else.
my God, this is so cool. It looks exactly like the Munsters house and everything. And you don't even get to that until like 30 minutes before the end of the film. The whole thing takes place in Transylvania. It's this prequel. There's no Marilyn. There's no Eddie Munster. And I don't know. It's just like, oh, I
Huh.
was so disappointing. But, oh,
I mean,
well,
he's been riding pretty high waves for a long time. You know, and
yeah.
I've told you a long time ago, like if I could switch lives with someone, one of them might be Rob Zombie, just because he does whatever he wants to do. You know, and when
Yeah. Well, this is a case in point. I mean, he's been a Munsters fan his whole life. I mean, like a really passionate fan, and he collects
yeah,
Munsters memorabilia. And so this was just like a passion project. And maybe he was too close to the source. I don't know. He couldn't.
that's what. And I wonder if the thing that like if you get that powerful essentially in entertainment, if you have that thing you've been holding on to forever, you're like, this is it. This is going to be like my piece de resistance. I have to make this. Maybe it's
Yeah.
the thing you shouldn't make. You know what I mean? Because
Yeah.
it's like you're blinded by your love for it. And even at that size, you need to consider what your audience maybe
Yeah.
wants or maybe expects from you to some degree. I don't know.
Yeah. All right. Give me some. I mean, give me a good movie.
Most recent in the box office, not at home, it's got to be Barbarian. Have you seen Barbarian yet?
Oh yes, yes.
I mean,
Does that take twists and turns?
yeah,
Wow.
and it's a heavy hitter, and I won't spoil anything for anybody. It has a type of violence or suggestion of violence in it that is definitely going to turn some viewers off. And
Yeah.
So it might not be for everybody. It's a little brutal at times, but it also is very hard to predict. And like you said, tons of twists and turns. And Bill Skarsgård is becoming like one of my favorite people in the movie industry. He's great in it, and I loved it, man. I mean, there were a couple jump scares in there that I don't jump much in the theater, and a couple of them.
Yeah. Well, I think what I like about that movie is that for once, they did the trailer right. Where usually, I'm so tired of trailers that give away the whole movie, and this one, the trailer leads you to believe it's going to be one thing, and then it's totally not, because you in fact, there's a key character, and well, he's mentioned in the trailer is the I can't think of the third character. I can't think of his name
Justin Long.
Justin Long, yeah.
Yeah.
So he's mentioned, so you know he's going to be in this movie, but he's not in the trailer, and so but they really focus on this first part of the movie, and so you think it's going to be that once he gets involved, it's a totally different movie.
Yes,
it just goes off the rails.
And I think you're right. I think we need a revolution in how we make trailers, because it isn't even worth going to see them sometimes, because you can't be surprised by anything anymore. You caught it all in the trailer. But you're right. Like Barbarian did that perfect job of not showing too much, and what they showed was fairly deceptive. So that when actual events unfold, you're like, oh, geez, it's like stressful to watch because you have just no idea what's going to happen. I loved it. I thought it was a great piece of filmmaking.
Yeah, that'll also probably be on my top 10 of the year, Barbarian.
Yeah, I would definitely put it in mine.
Really well done.
I watch a ton of movies with friends and whatnot. I've got Shudder, and just, what was it, 3-4 months ago, I don't know if you consider it a horror movie or not, but Mad God was all over Shudder.
I haven't seen it. Oh, I have not seen it.
You know what it is?
No.
It was, there's a stop motion animator named Phil Tippett.
Oh.
He worked on Star Wars, I think Return of the Jedi, Jurassic Park he famously worked on, but he had this like passion project on his own for like 30 years or something, making this extremely long stop motion film about a character descending into an underworld to do we don't even know what. And if you like practical effects in stop motion, it's like maybe the greatest single achievement anybody's ever accomplished. He had help. Like, I think a lot of students from like USC or something would help him as part of their like coursework. But it's nuts, man. It's like one of the best stop motions ever made. Kind of reminded me of Pink Floyd's The Wall. The way that
really?
All the animation. It's like you take that animation, you put it in stop motion, you get something kind of similar to Mad God, I feel like.
Oh, I got to see that. See, I saw it on Shudder, it kept showing up on there, and I think, I got to watch this, and then I forgot about it, and now it's, okay, I'm going to put it back.
I committed to it. Something about it. When I see something like that, I'm like, oh, I got to see it now.
Yeah, Shudder's been doing this series they started of like the 100 scariest scenes in movies.
Yeah.
It's like a YouTube series, basically.
Oh, really?
But it's okay. It's kind of I don't know if they really are the 100 scariest scenes, but you get to hear a bunch of people talk about movies that I like.
Right, exactly. Are they picking good scenes at least?
Yeah, fairly good scenes. They're usually not picking like the ones you would expect, which is kind of good. I watched it it's coming out like every Wednesday now. I watched it last night. They did like Rosemary's Baby and a couple Giallos, Suspiria was in there.
Okay, so they're going pretty classic here so far.
Yeah, it's kind of all over the place, so it's cool. They even did Seven, which it was, I guess, kind of arguably horrors, maybe not.
That's what I'm saying. That psycho thriller stuff, is it horror? I don't know. It's got horror elements.
Yeah, I think probably the classic is Silence of the Lambs. I think people are always going to debate whether that's a horror movie or not.
I would call it a horror movie. Honestly, I would. Yep. What about you? What have you seen recently?
Oh, okay. So I got a couple, and I really like to search for the offbeat ones and the less than big budget movies, and so there's a couple this year, and this one is probably the most controversial film among horror fans, and it's Dash Cam. And so this is the guy who made Host on Shudder, which was during the pandemic.
God, I love Host, man.
the same time, yeah, Host was my top. That was my number one film of the year in
Yeah.
2020, I think it was.
Pandemic movie, yeah.
Yeah, and so he made Dash Cam also, just shortly after that, and it came out this year. And oh man, people hate this movie,
Really?
and I actually think it's one of my favorite movies this year. And so it's got a really abrasive protagonist, and so she's
Right.
this, and she kind of plays herself. She does this show called, I don't remember what it's called, but it's like this. She ad libs rap. She makes her ad lib rap songs while driving, live streaming, and people suggest lyrics, and so she just improvs rap songs. And it's
Huh.
real clever and kind of fun. But her personality in this is that it's hard to like her. In fact, it's impossible to like her because she's like, this is during the pandemic, and she's like this, MAGA hat wearing, anti-vaxxer, anti-masker, just over the top kind of personality. But this seems to be the main complaint people have with the movie, is that I hate this character, therefore this movie is awful. And I think, well, it's that's sort of what I like about it, is that the protagonist isn't somebody that we really can get on board with, although I do kind of warm up to her towards the end of the movie. But it's kind of like Alex in Clockwork Orange. He's not really a good person, but he's
Right.
the protagonist, So there's precedence for this, but I don't know. I thought it was interesting. It's a found footage film, and I know you like found footage
I
movies.
do. I
So
love found footage.
this
Is
one
it
is total found footage. Yeah,
feature film length, or is it like Host where it's an abbreviated movie?
it is short. It's not as short as Host. It's
Okay.
I was listening to an interview with Rob Savage, the guy who made the film, and this time, because it wasn't released on Shudder, they had to make. And see, this is the stupid thing, that a lot of these distributors demand a certain length of a movie, and so
Okay.
that's why sometimes movies are padded out when they really shouldn't be. Which was a great thing that Shudder took up Host, because it's like 56 minutes or something.
Yeah.
So this one's like an hour and 15 minutes, hour and 20 minutes.
Okay.
But what he did is, because he didn't have enough material, the last 10 minutes of it is the credits, and she's like ad libbing, rapping the credits, which I think is really cool. She's like reading the names off, but she's just so vile and so obnoxious. And I guess this is kind of like the show she does on the internet. It's pretty similar. So it's
So she's real. She's a
she's
real
a
person.
real person, yeah, and so she's playing herself. So it's Annie Hardy is the person, and I've seen her videos on YouTube. I actually think that they're pretty funny, but the movie, anyways, is kind of inexplicable. She goes during the pandemic to England to visit a friend of hers who used to be in her band, and spooky things start to happen, and it's her just trying to stay alive is what it is. And I think there's some really scary scenes. This is not a movie that you want to see if you can't get on board with found footage and shaky cam, because that's really what it is.
Is most of it dash cam, like actual vehicle dash
It's
cam,
a
or
combination of that and then her shooting on her phone.
okay?
And most of the movie is just ad libbed. And they would do the thing kind of like Blair Witch Project, where the director would throw things into the scene for her to react to, and she wasn't aware of what was going to happen. So I just think it's an interesting way to make movie. But oh boy, do people hate this movie!
I
So I'm going to
mean,
go out on a limb and support it.
that's like a piece of performance art. They are really. That's what this. I feel like the director's pretty young, right? I
Yeah,
can't
he is.
remember. I read something about him. He's like really kind of pushing the boundaries here, because a lot of this stuff is very meta. It's
Yeah,
like using Zoom to film a horror movie, and now using a YouTube or a social media celebrity to
right.
star in a contrived storyline where she's also playing herself. Like, that stuff's pretty
It
pretty
is.
out there in terms of what he's trying to accomplish, at least. So, huh?
Band Car. That's the name of her show that she does online.
Man, car.
And so she uses Band Car in the movie. So yeah, it is kind of
That's
meta.
wild. Oh my
It
gosh,
is. It is a
All
weird
right,
movie.
I've got it written down. I'm gonna have to go back and watch it.
Yeah, and
Um,
make sure it's the right one because there's two dash cams. There's one, and I think they came out like maybe the same year or something. The other one, I don't know what it is, but this is
because I just watched, and here I blanked on the name. I try to write my movies down, and then I forget to do it. The kid who plays Steve Harrington in Stranger Things did a horror movie where he's basically an Uber driver, but it's not Uber. It's some sort of ride sharing
oh,
app.
it's called oh
Scoop
man,
or something like that.
what?
Like Scoop or something like that. I can't remember what the app was called that he used, but
Yeah, I saw that too, and I can't think of. Damn, it's
and
gonna
he
drive
goes
me.
on like a violent spree. It was
Spree,
okay.
is it? That's what it was called, Spree. Yeah.
That's it. Never mind. I got there on accident. Wow. Yes, Spree. It was okay. I really like that.
Hmm.
Kiri, I think his name is Joe Kiri. But could kind of take it or leave it as a horror movie.
Yeah.
I've been on a tear lately with the remakes.
Hmm.
Shoot, in the last 3 months, I've watched the remakes of Nightmare on Elm Street, Friday the 13th, Evil Dead, and Carrie.
Oh, those are good.
Yeah, I mean they're all good. I would put Friday the 13th really high in terms of
Yeah.
the remake, really really high. And I thought that Evil Dead remake, which came out, most of these came out like 10 years ago or more.
Yeah.
I thought those were killer horror movies.
Oh, it's definitely. I mean, they really took what was in the original, amped it up, and didn't disrespect the original. It's just as good.
Yeah, no, and that's the thing. It's kind of why I couldn't put the Nightmare on Elm Street in there. I have a friend who is probably more obsessed with the character of Freddy than anybody you've ever met, and I think I went to see Nightmare on Elm Street when it came out, the remake with him, and like he doesn't like remakes to begin with, so it's kind of risky even going with him. And I mean, he was up in arms about the evolution that they took with the character, with the
Yeah.
storyline, with the prosthetics. And I saw things. I mean, there were definitely parts of it that I liked. I love Rooney Mara as an actress. She was so good at it. There's the other kid I can't remember his name who kind of co-stars with her. But the Freddy character was like, I think it was a bit of a miss.
Yeah.
I really liked his voice. I liked a lot of the things they did with audio in the movie. I liked all the dream sequence stuff. I thought they introduced that little element where they're like micro napping, they call it, or something, where you can kind of slip into sleep while you're wide awake. Like using that as like a narrative technique, I thought was brilliant, and it made all these great visuals of like dream stuff kind of colliding with reality. But it just didn't. There was too much that kind of made you scratch your head or cringe a little bit.
Yeah, I agree with that. That was out of those remakes. That's probably would be my least favorite. I think my favorite actually would be Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
Yeah, and I didn't, and I watched that one a few months ago.
Jessica Biel one.
Yes.
Yeah.
And, there have been so many reboots
There
of
was one this year.
that I lose track of them.
Yeah.
There's the most recent one. What was that one
Just
called?
came out this year. It was called Texas Chainsaw Massacre, not the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Okay, so this is another one that people hated, and I actually loved it. I thought this was the only time when there was an actual massacre in a Texas Chainsaw Massacre. There was an actual chainsaw massacre.
Tons of people. Yeah, I think you texted me after you watched it
On the bus.
Yeah, I did, and I loved it, man. I was like, visually,
that's cool.
it's like, storyline so flimsy. It's like just incredibly flimsy, but
It's ridiculous. This is why I like Leatherface. To me, is one of my favorite kind of classic characters, and I like because there's zero continuity with it, and this is what drives people crazy. They're like, well, how does this film fit in with the others, and this doesn't make any sense because this character. I'm like, no, you don't look at it that way. Look at it like Dracula or something. It's just a character that you can make all these different movies. The only thing that's the same is that he wears this human skin and, you know, he uses a chainsaw. That's pretty much
And
it. You
he's
don't need any
probably in
continuity.
Texas, presumably in Texas.
Yeah, and he's in Texas. Or since the last few movies have been shot in Hungary, though.
Yeah, that was a shot. Oh my gosh! I mean, you bring up a good point. Is that he kind of has become one of the classic horror movie villains,
Yeah.
and yeah, so people can kind of pick him up and do what they want with him, I guess.
Yeah.
And you don't get like what we have had with the Halloween franchise, where yeah, it's like constant debate about where things fall in the continuity timeline, and directors having to come out way ahead of time and be like, okay, look, this story goes back to the second movie, but it reimagines the second movie and goes on.
I know.
That stuff is hard to keep up with, man.
But you know who does it perfect? On the opposite end of that spectrum is Dan Mancini, who does Child's Play series.
Which I have not watched the new stuff yet.
Chucky is one person has had that franchise ever since the beginning in the very first Child's Play movie. So every single movie and now the TV series are all connected, and that's pretty cool. Amazing. That's an accomplishment. It's like a 40-year project, you know.
That I did not know that. Just watched Child's Play 2, rewatched it a couple weeks ago, and that movie is very close to my heart because the first two horror movies I ever saw when I was like 10 or 11 years old, like probably shouldn't have been watching when I was like at a friend's house. We watched Friday the 13th Part 8, Jason Takes Manhattan, and Child's Play 2, like while eating pizza in a room full of my friends and stuff like that. And it will always be like my introduction to horror, but I hadn't seen it since. And watched it with my good friend Julie Basil, who gave me this shirt. She runs the Flickers from the Cave podcast.
Step up a little bit. Let me see what that says.
Too gory for the silver screen. This is from Media Crypt, is a company that makes horror merchandise, clothing. And she let me borrow this, but rewatched Child's Play 2 with her and like loved it. I thought, you know, another super campy idea, about as campy as you get, and they just play into that, and it's just it's like a fun romp through like a toy factory by the end. You know, like how many crazy
it is.
Up with and stuff.
It is the conveyor belts and everything. I love how that series just got so crazy campy with bringing in Tiffany, his girlfriend. They got married, the bride of Chucky, and then they have like a kid who's neither a boy or a girl. It's Glenn or Glenda, and they argue over that, which is a reference to an Ed Wood movie going way back. But
okay.
And so they have. He has taken this series and every movie has kind of done something different with it, but it's all connected, which I don't think there's any other film series in history that has been so connected. And it's just because the one guy has been in charge of the whole thing.
Amazing. I didn't know that. And I haven't seen anything past, I might have seen 3 once, but it was so long ago I forgot.
Oh, you should do it. See, I just went through like a marathon last year and caught up on all of them. It was fun.
And the show's good too?
I like the show. Yeah, I think it's really good. It's also taking it in kind of a new direction, but you still have that foul mouthed little piece of shit doll, and he's just so funny listening to him.
Like, was it best friend, like My Pal Tommy? Like, what's it called? What the doll that
the good guys.
The
good guy.
Good guy Tommy. Yeah, I forgot that. I was like, his name wasn't even Chucky. I couldn't even remember the Legend of the Lakeshore Strangler and everything. And like, why is this animate doll running around killing people? Like, all that was wiped from my memory. So it was like, it was a blast just to revisit it with my friend the other night. So
we had a couple of quick shots here this year. Studio 666. Did you see that?
Dave Grohl's thing.
Dave Grohl film. It was. It was perfectly acceptable. That's about all I would say. It was fun. You know, if you like comedy, horror comedy, and these guys aren't actors, but it was kind of fun to see Dave Grohl. Well, the whole band, the Foo Fighters.
I know, and I mean, then like shortly after that, Taylor Hawkins died, and so I'm gonna have. In fact, I just read Dave Grohl's book, literally sitting right here. And this precedes the death of Taylor Hawkins too, so I need to watch it just for, I don't know, Foo Fighters nostalgia or something. So
another movie early this year came out on Shudder. I think it's still there. Is The Seed, and I probably liked it way more than I should have. It's a kind of throwback monster movie. These three like Instagrammers, social media influencers who are really obnoxious, and they find this like creature, so kind of comes to life and it impregnates them, and it's kind of old school that way, but it's brought up, and there's some really good gore towards the end of it, and I just thought it was a lot of fun. If you just like those kind of
Okay.
just brain dead movies, The Seed was a lot of fun.
With horror, I do. Barbarian sent me on like a Justin Long kick and went back. I had never seen Tusk by Kevin Smith.
Oh man, yeah, that's who's the Kevin
Smith, the who
Kevin
did
Smith.
well Clerks and Mallrats and
Yeah.
Red State.
Yeah.
I thought Red State was really good. Not quite a horror, again, kind of like a cultural thriller or something. But Tusk is
Yeah, John Goodman was in that Red State.
yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Goodman was in there with them. Yeah, if you want to see Justin Long like you've never seen it before, watch Tusk.
That's a hard movie to watch, because if you're looking for something that makes sense, but it doesn't, but it's so cruel and sad and funny and weird. And
yeah, like as far as like dysmorphia goes, body dysmorphia, there's maybe never been a harder film to watch if if stuff like that scares you. So
right.
really like Tusk.
Yeah, see, another comedian filmmaker. Yeah.
Yes, exactly. I mean, he's kind of a Jordan Peele of types, like he goes off and does whatever he wants to. I'm glad that he's ventured into horror.
Yeah.
That's part of his job now. And went back and rewatched during the hurricane, watched Crawl, Sam Raimi's Crawl. I love that movie. I like tropical horror. I don't know if that's a genre, but anything set in like a tropical location. I like.
That's the alligator one, right? Or the
yes,
yeah, where she's trapped under the under the house in the crawl space.
Her and Barry Pepper was her dad.
Yeah.
I just love stuff like that, man. I like creature features because there's very little moral dilemma in them.
Right.
It's like, it's like a
true.
Storm story too, like man against storm or man against alligator. In this instance, woman against storm and alligator. It's perfect because it's just like. You're trapped. The storm traps you. It's trying to kill you. You got to stay alive. And then he throws in this other element of a completely unrealistic gator feeding frenzy that's happening in his town, like when the storm sets in. But I love movies like that. So it was really fun to watch during an actual hurricane.
Did you see the new Cronenberg movie?
What, Crimes of the Future?
Crimes of the Future, yeah.
No, I haven't seen it yet. I bet you have.
Yeah, because I love Cronenberg.
You love
I love body horror. This was a return to his old 80s style, like The Fly and Dead Ringers had some of that in there, Videodrome, all those types of movies. There was some Existence, which was his 90s Existence. So it's kind of, he pulled all of that together. I liked it. It's definitely not one of his best. It almost felt like he was like just trying to bring in a lot of his old movies and not really doing anything new with that. He was like, everybody wants me to get back to my roots and do my body horror, so here you go. But I did, Viggo Mortensen is really good. And I think it's an interesting idea about this future where people are starting to grow these new organs. And then there's always, in his movies, there's always like a government conspiracy and big corporations. And so this couple has these like performance art where they remove these organs, surgically remove them in front of crowds of people. And they it's a very difficult movie to explain, but I enjoyed it.
I will definitely watch it because it's got to be out of theaters by now, right?
Yeah, I'm sure you can rent it on
streaming. I'll stream it for sure because I've missed a lot of Cronenberg. A lot of his, I've never seen The Fly, man. Well, might have seen it when I was so young that it just like went right over my head. But I obviously I have to watch it at some point, so maybe I could do a Cronenberg review of my own one of these weeks.
Yeah, his movies. It's really, I think the first movie of his that I saw was Scanners, and I just remember that as a kid, seeing this guy's head explode was to me the best thing. And that was for years. That's all I remembered about the movie was this guy's
Yeah, I
head
think that's all
exploding.
anybody remembers about the movie. Like when I was growing up, like got kids older than me, like in high school and stuff, they were constantly referencing Scanners. Are you
Right.
gonna go Scanners, man?
You got to see the head explode.
Yeah, that's right. Prey, the new Predator movie.
Oh, haven't seen it.
Good. I
Really?
liked it. Yes, and it's like a I I like this sort of movie. It's like a sci-fi horror. It is Predator, but in this case, they jump way back historically to like colonial America,
Right.
and predators, I guess, were visiting us back then, as far as this storyline is concerned. And you know, Native American tribal members. I can't remember the tribe now, if they're Comanche. Get embroiled in like your classic predator battle while like French fur trappers and stuff are encroaching on their lands, and it becomes this kind of like three-way fight. But I thought it was a great direction to take that whole franchise in. Because I mean, how many more times can you do the modern military predator thing and the
Yeah.
future military predator thing? And somebody's like, let's move it backwards in time a little bit. I
Yeah.
thought that was pretty clever.
Cool. Here's my deep cut. This is called "We're All Going to the World's Fair." So, also first
Yeah.
time director. This movie, I think it might have come out late last year, but I think it became widespread online this year, and now it's on HBO Max. And I've actually seen it 3 times, and this is
Oh,
another example of a movie that a lot of people just totally tune out of. They're like, I could not get past it. It was so boring and so long, and so here I am trying to sell this movie. But so
right.
what this is it's basically a single person movie. It's this girl teen who is kind of, I guess, lonely teen in her attic, and she lives with her dad. We never see him, but she spends all of her time online, and so she wants to play this online game called the World's Fair Challenge, or do the World's Fair Challenge. And so this all takes place in the very first part of the movie, and then you're supposed to change after taking this challenge, and then you record it. And so she's got a YouTube channel where she keeps talking, and she meets up with one person who's concerned about her, this other guy online. And that's about it. The movie is more of like a meditation, I suppose, because if for me, I really get into these kind of things where like there's a single shot of her for 8 minutes of her just doing this challenge thing, because it looked like a YouTube video,
Yeah.
they kind of got that right. Usually, movies don't get YouTube right at all.
Right.
But
Yeah.
I really liked it. I thought it was kind of sad, a little bit thought provoking, and again, just kind of a kind of zone out and watched it. A little bit creepy.
I saw, I hovered over the thumbnail and watched the trailer, and forgot that I'd even seen the preview for it. But no, it looked like something I could definitely try. I
Yeah,
like low budget stuff. It forces people to
yeah,
be a lot more creative and try to tell it. You have to tell a different story than
yeah.
what a full fledged director probably would. So I'll check it out. You describing it that way kind of reminded me. I finally caught up with one of your all time favorites and watched Saint Maud.
Oh, what'd you think of Saint Maud?
I loved it, man. What's her name?
Yeah,
Morgan Clark, the
yeah,
actress. She's
yeah.
amazing in it. It's one of those wallflower movies that make you uncomfortable because she's so socially awkward.
Right.
Um,
Yeah.
which is clearly the point of Saint Maud. But no, she was brilliant in it. You kind of take that trip into madness with her, and she is like coming up. I don't know if you watch Lord of the Rings or anything, but she's basically got
Oh,
the lead role in all this
oh, I didn't
Amazon
know that.
Prime Lord of the
Oh,
Rings stuff. So like, she is no longer, uh,
yeah,
you know, obscure horror movie actress
right.
by any means. Like, she's front and center right now. So I think she earned it.
I can't wait to see what Rose Glass makes next. She's
Yeah.
the director of that movie. That was her first time ever. And again, this is another low budget film that A24 picked up. And yeah, that movie, it just, the ending of that is just so good. It's so
Yeah,
good.
it was. You can start to sense it
Yeah.
halfway through, 2/3 of the way through. You're like, this can
Yeah, it's
only
one of
kind
these
of go like
movies.
that.
I like movies that are just kind of like dread, that there's
Yes.
this feeling of, and Saint Maud is just one of those movies that just is relentless that way. There's just no moment for like levity. There's no comic relief. There's none of that. It's just like, boom, man, this is going to be hard, and it's going to get worse and worse as it goes on. Yeah, I love those.
I
That's
know you
horror.
do it. I'm like, and I'm so the opposite, where I tend to like popcorn bubblegum horror. Like
Yeah,
I say, teens partying, people
I do
people.
too. I do too.
um, the heavy trauma stuff, I go in for it. Like I still watch that stuff, and I mean, Barbarian. You know what? Barbarian really is kind of a combination of both
It is. That's a good
things.
combination.
And I dig that. But yeah, Saint Maud, totally heavy. Kind of remind me of Babadook or something like
Hmm.
that, where it's like Babadook is so stressful to watch. You're talking about Dashcam having the unlikable protagonist, and all I could
Yeah,
think was Babadook and the kid that won't
that
stop
kid.
moving. Like your blood pressure goes up watching that movie because he
Oh,
never shuts up. And I'm
oh,
sure the director's like, lay it on, scream louder, scream more.
yeah. Oh,
And
what a
that's,
good movie, Babadook. I got to watch that again. It's been a long time since I've seen that. Another movie that, and I just saw this a couple nights ago for the third time probably, because it's also one of these really, I just call it hard horror movie, is an incident in a ghost land. Have you seen this movie? Have you ever heard of it?
I haven't even heard of it.
So this is part of this French extremity movement. These French directors who were really kind of pushing the boundaries. But this one takes place in the U.S. and it's in English. But yeah, it's about these two girls and their mom who go away to this house that they've inherited, and right at the beginning they get attacked by a couple of strangers, and then it switches to the future, and then you can kind of see how this is all played out. And this is one of these movies that has one really good twist in it that you just kind of are left like, wait, what just happened there? And then it all starts to fall into place. And there's all these, when you watch it a second time, there's all these clues at the beginning that kind of lead you to that. So I just love that movie. It's really good. But it's also one of these movies, it's not for the faint hearted because it's really violent, really violent.
Okay, brutal. Okay, interesting.
Yeah.
Wait, what's it called again?
It's called An Incident in a Ghost Land.
Ghostland. You talking about how you don't understand elements of it that you see at the beginning until they develop
Yeah.
later on, and you say, "Oh, that's what I think probably the greatest success of Nope is." And
Mm.
something that Jordan Peele is just a master of is constantly showing you things all over the place in the beginning that seem random, beautiful when you see them, but very randomly placed in each thing meticulously, like one at a time. It begins making more sense as the movie goes along until it all just comes together in the end. And that's just good directing, man. Good, because the director has to always kind of be also kind of be the person who originated the story to be able to do that. That's what I think. They're like, you need a really clear vision of what you're doing to pull stuff like that off.
Yeah.
And I just think that's like Jordan Peele's
Oh man,
great.
okay. You sold me. I got to see this now.
Yeah,
I
I
don't
think
know
you should.
why
Let
I've
me
been
know what
putting
you
it
think.
off. I should have seen it. I should have seen it at the theater. I don't know why I didn't, but I wish I
It
had.
was a good big screen movie. A lot of good crowd reactions too and stuff because it's
Yeah.
funny. I mean, the guy is a comedian, so there's like
Yeah.
outrageously hilarious scenes. But I think that's a
Have-
lot of what I've seen recently. Although I did go back to Blair Witch recently, a few months
The
ago. Blair Witch
the
Project,
Blair Witch Project, the original one.
the original, yeah.
Yeah.
And I liked it more this time than the first time I saw it back in
Really.
1999 or whenever it was that I watched it. Yeah, I mean, it's like John Carpenter and Halloween doing as much as you can with virtually nothing.
Yeah.
I don't think anybody will ever pull it off like that little team did. That like 3-person team or 4-person team with the
Yeah.
original Blair Witch Project. I mean, nothing ever happens in that movie.
No,
You don't see anything, and
no.
it just barrels along,
Yeah.
and it's so taut like the whole way through. So I
Oh, and
love it.
the last 10 minutes of that I think are some of the best ever filmed. It's so
Yeah,
tense and
yeah,
so creepy. And yeah, that was, and it, again, I love the way he filmed that, where the three of them didn't know what the
yeah.
story was or anything, so that their reactions were real. He was like, "Here's some cameras, start shooting, and we're gonna hide in the woods. We're gonna do stuff and make weird
Yeah.
noises at night and everything." So those reactions are in a lot of the ways real. That's one of my top 10 horror movies ever made. Is
Yeah,
Blair Witch Project
makes
easily?
perfect sense to me.
Yeah,
And just three like completely unheralded actors, which is exactly what they wanted. They didn't want anybody to know
yeah,
these people. And of course, there was all the media hoopla surrounding it, very
yeah.
cannibal Holocaust, where
Hmm.
people were laying low for like a year afterwards. It was pre-internet or the dawn of the internet. It was like just enough internet to promote the thing and make it famous, but not enough for anybody to figure out what the heck was going on.
Yeah.
And they pulled that off at the last moment in history where you could do something like that. I think.
That was the perfect timing for that, and
Yeah,
I remember it so well when that came out because I wanted to see that, but I remember there was real discussions from people about if this was a real thing or not because they had a website, you
yeah,
know, and the website was so detailed and it had all this backstory and here's the evidence that we've collected and all
yeah.
of this, and yeah, people were really really believing that.
And I was in high school at the time. I was 17 when it came out, and I mean, I can't
Yeah.
even tell you the effect it had on high schoolers, and where people were like, "This is the real thing, man! Like
Yeah.
what we've been waiting for, like a real haunting, a real massacre and stuff."
Yeah.
So yeah, totally brilliant.
Oh, speaking of hauntings, I might have mentioned this to you before. Hell House LLC. You seen that?
Yeah, and we might have
Yeah,
discussed it last time.
I think so. Yeah,
They rebooted it, didn't they? Didn't they do a sequel to it at some point?
there is a sequel. Yeah, I don't remember much about it. I remember the original one though. Is just big to me. It had some really good creepy imagery in that and
Yeah,
scary kind of. I like those where you're looking. There's something just visceral about looking down a dark stairway into a
yeah,
basement. Every basement in the world is just creepy, I think. I don't know. We don't have basements out where I live, but it just
right.
seems creepy to look down and just see like, oh man, and see
It's true,
something
man.
moving.
My grandparents had a basement like that up in the Northeast, and now I mean I'm 40 years old, and I spent a lot of time underneath houses, far more than the average person,
Yeah,
But
I know.
when I got a tool belt on, it's one thing. You're like fearless, we got a tool belt on, but when it's just like the middle of the
Yeah.
day on like a Tuesday, and you're like, oh, I got to go to the basement, there's something spooky about
You
it.
click at the switch, it doesn't work. Click, click, click,
Yeah,
click. Oh well, I'll go down there anyways, even though
right.
there's creepy sounds and crickety old staircase.
Barbarian takes great advantage of the basement
Definitely.
fear
Yeah,
phenomenon.
that was whoa, man. That
Yeah,
movie, yeah, that's definitely one of the best of the year.
yeah.
Um,
Is
I
there
saw the Black Phone. I was kind of mediocre about
I
it.
didn't
That's
see it. I wasn't compelled. I like Ethan Hawke, and like when I was growing
yeah,
up, he was the only other person named Ethan anywhere. So I felt like
yeah,
we were
right.
all connected or something. I really
He's
liked Ethan
good.
Hawke, but
I do too.
it didn't seem something about the storyline just didn't.
Yeah, I think it's one of these that'll appeal to people who are just real casual horror fans, or somebody
Yeah,
who's not really a horror fan, but they just kind of want that level of thriller. It would be more along the lines of the Silence of the Lambs kind of a movie,
okay,
but not that good as
right.
Silence of the Lambs. It was okay. I think the thing with me is there were some pretty glaring plot holes that were a little bit annoying in that,
Okay,
but
interesting.
overall, I
I
saw.
will probably wind up watching it. But.
So at the very beginning of the year, also A24, I saw this weird movie that, again, I don't know if it's a horror movie or not, called Lamb. It's this
Oh,
Icelandic movie about this couple. Have you heard about this thing?
I saw the preview for it, but did they have like a child with like the head of a lamb or
They're
something like
they're
that?
raising this lamb as their child, and it's just this kind of weird magical realism, and it's sad and it's funny and it's so bizarre, and I really recommend that movie a lot. It's one of these that's really just paced along. You just got to kind of go with it, you know. Don't try to make a whole lot of sense out of it. But I think it was interesting. And as far as other foreign movies, what was that? Looking through my list, the Hatch, or no, The Hatching. Have you seen Hatching?
No, is it Japanese?
No, this one it's like Swedish or Finnish, Scandinavian, but yeah, it's this girl and her family who this bird crashes into their house and dies, and she finds this egg and raises it and the egg gets huge and it becomes the kind of a monster movie. Real fun, really good. There's a lot of moral dilemmas in there that I really like.
Interesting. So many good movies come out of that region of the world. I like that it's become one of the kind of fertile movie making grounds. Finland, especially Finland in particular. I'll watch it. Do you remember Tale? It came out probably 15 years ago.
Don't know that one.
It's a story of two guys who do gross cleanup in houses where there have been where there's like a dead body, unfortunately, or something.
Right.
They're who you get the quiet phone call to, and they're like, "We'll get this cleaned up," And in one of the houses, they discover what seems to be an abandoned science project of some sort. Kind of unnerving. It's like behind various locked doors and down in a basement. And they think it's fully abandoned until they realize that whatever was being experimented on is still there. And is a girl who isn't quite human. But yeah, great. I think it's a Finnish movie, but it might be Norwegian. I would rewatch it, honestly.
I'll check it out. What is it called again?
Tale, but it's like tall. It's like a Scandinavian word, Thale.
Oh, got it.
Yeah.
Yeah, that kind of reminds me of, there was Titane. I think this was French, though. It just came out this year, and this is about this woman who is in love with machinery.
Oh, yeah.
Sort of.
Titan. Yes. I watched like the first third, and I don't normally do this, but I turned it off. And it wasn't because it was good. And I will probably still finish it, but I just got to the nose breaking scene. And I don't know if you remember that. I was like, you know what? I'm just not, I don't have it tonight. Like, I can't see this maybe breaking out now.
Well, it was just very French, Yeah. I don't know.
Right.
But it wasn't part of the whole French extremity movement, which would have been like Irreversible and what was that movie? It came out. Yeah, I'm blanking on those French movies. So I'd be remiss if I didn't mention, I think, one of my favorite films. I loved it so much. Orphan, First Kill.
The sequel.
The sequel came out. So this is like the prequel to Orphan. Okay. Orphan was a movie that came out like 15 years ago, 10 years ago, something like that. And so they finally done this prequel, and it's just so sleazy and so stupid and ridiculous, and I loved every minute of it. I love both of those movies.
The first one was excellent. It reminded me of The Good Son. Do you remember The Good Son with Macaulay Culkin and Elijah Wood when they were like 10 years old?
Yeah, I haven't seen that, but I know the movie you're talking about.
You should watch it, man. If you like Orphan, you'll really like it. Good Son's even a bit more hard-hitting than Orphan, because Orphan has some levity like towards the end, but First Kill. They don't use the same woman.
It's the same woman, which is so crazy.
A decade and a half later or something.
She's playing. So this is a woman who's, I don't know, she's like in her 30s. She's playing well, I'm not going to spoil the whole plot,
right?
But
Yeah,
she's playing like a 10-year-old. And she pulls it off. It's just, I mean, they do some like de-aging stuff, I think, digitally maybe, but it's just it's so sleazy and just dumb. And if you're looking for, this would be a good kind of a party movie, because it's just, it's a lot of fun. Yeah,
that's what October's for, man. Movies like that.
It's definitely it. And I'll watch Trick or Treat. I watch that every year. That
Yeah.
Trick or Treat's coming out at the theaters too. So check near you. It might be at the theater.
I would love to go see it in the theaters. You're right.
Yeah.
I watch it every October.
Yeah.
Because there's so many short story, what do you call them, like short film
Anthologies.
yeah, like anthologies. They're all like, a lot of them are pretty fun. What was it, Southbound, I think was a pretty good one. VHS obviously was like super popular, but nothing quite captures Halloween mood like Trick or Treat does. It's almost like Ernest Scared Stupid meets real horror or something.
I think it's like the only genuine Halloween movie. I mean, it really is about Halloween,
right? Yeah,
Halloween, but
right. No, trick or treating, and
I like how all of the stories are so well connected in there. They're not just a random. It's not just a random anthology. They all fit together. There's a lot of humor. There's a lot of exciting parts in it. It's the perfect Halloween movie that I think anybody could watch. Trick or Treat. I don't think there's anything.
I think you're right. It's kind of like a Creep Show or something like that.
Oh, but that's a good comparison. Yeah.
Centered around a neighborhood, just like you're saying, like this totally cohesive storyline, because it's just like what's happening on this street, basically, or this like small neighborhood. Yeah. Did they ever sequel that?
I don't think so. No, not that I'm aware of. I'm surprised they haven't, because it would be ripe for it now, because this is one of those movies that when it came out, not a lot of people were into it, but now it's super popular. They've got you can go to Spirit Halloween store and they've got a whole trick or treat section with Sam, and
because a Sackboy, the kid with they're like so iconic now. Seems like it's the sort of thing, like when you see it, you feel like it's been around forever. It's like kind of a little scarecrow kid. All right, I'm gonna watch Trick or Treat again.
Well, let's wrap it up with just a couple of your favorite horror movies ever, like your go-to horror movies.
Controversial, but Scream 4. And I love Scream 1. And I might have said this before on one of our podcasts, but rewatched Scream 4 a few months ago. I think it may be like the most perfect slasher ever made.
Remind me what happens in Scream 4. I'm sure I've seen it.
The one with Hayden Panettiere in it, with the short blonde hair, and Kieran Culkin. And it's really just another Scream movie. And that's one of the things I love about it, is like it doesn't go madly off script from the whole Scream storyline. If anything, it brings it back around, because like the second and third one, they're like going to college and like different locations and stuff. This one comes right back to Woodsboro, and it brings back Neve Campbell and Gale Weathers and Dewey and everybody. And there's a new Ghostface killer, and you're getting the progression of internet technology, where they're using far more webcams, and Kieran Culkin, his best friend, is like always live casting. It's a little bit dated in terms of how it perceives the internet, but at the time, they were kind of like looking at pushing the boundary, and it's so funny. It's extremely tight, and everything you love about all those characters gets like bumped up. Like, Neve Campbell's like super badass in it. Dewey's got the heart of gold, and he can't do much right sometimes, and Gail's like overly ambitious at all times, and her career is kind of floundering. It's like everyone's career is floundering just a little bit, and so they all need to do their jobs better. So Scream 4, man, is like really. I'm gonna
have to watch that again, because it's funny, because I just don't really remember that one. I'm gonna have to.
That's wild.
Watch.
And I do love horror set in neighborhoods like Halloween and stuff. I don't know why. I didn't grow up in a neighborhood. I grew up like out in the woods, and I always envied people in neighborhoods, because I'm social, and you're all like near each other, like your friends like right down the street. And Scream 4 does a good job with people looking out of their window into their friend's window and seeing something that's like terrifying.
Yeah, it seems like all those, especially the 80s horror films, they always took place in the suburbs.
Yes, and I think it's brilliant. It's so cozy. It Trick or Treat, takes place in the suburbs, and I think that's part of what makes it work. It's so like American.
Yeah.
And looking real quick through my list, it's hard to say. That's Scream 4 and Scream 1 are definitely on there. And then Paranormal Activity, the big three from the last 15 years. Paranormal Activity, Conjuring, and Insidious. Like,
Insidious.
what a gift all that was to get in this
Yeah.
fairly short time frame. And then they all became franchises with, reboots down the line. Yeah,
I'm totally on board with you on those. I think that if anybody is not really a horror fan, watch The Conjuring if you really want a good scare that's not gonna destroy you or anything.
Yeah, exactly.
But it's a really good scary movie.
It is, and it's almost like generic in its storyline. You're like a classic haunting, a classic exorcism, but it just does all those things really well, better than most movies that tackle it. And then you got a great cast.
And a great director, James Wan, did Saw, and
exactly.
so he really knows how to misdirect you in those. Yeah.
Totally. And it's based on, real life Ed and Lorraine Warren, who were doing their thing in the 70s and 80s and were legitimately famous. And so I think that's cool too, that it's just grounded in something realistic, whether their exorcisms were real or not. It still adds a little something you can take away from the movie into like real life. And
they got the whole like Conjuring universe now, which I'm totally on board with. I like all the Annabelle movies and The Nun, and they're coming out with The Nun 2 now.
I'll watch it, man.
I will too.
Just so spooky. The character is so creepy.
Yeah.
So
totally. But those are good picks. Insidious, and there, Ethan Hawke. There you go.
Yep. Yeah. Exactly. No, that was Sinister.
Oh, I'm thinking Sinister, right?
Yeah.
Which
was good. Which is very good.
Yeah. Yeah, Sinister was Sinister. He was the author who went into
exactly.
Right,
of course, which he is in real life too. But Insidious was that's the big three of that time period for me.
Yeah,
Insidious, Conjuring, Paranormal.
Paranormal Activity is also probably, I like all of the Paranormal Activity movies, but the first one is also in my top 10 movies of all time. It's just
I put it up
such a great movie, and it's just I love that there's just no credits. They make that feel real. It's just like the movie ends. It's like, how do they even do that? How is that? It's weird.
Yeah, how do you get away with that? Jeez.
Yeah.
And it's like, Carlsbad Police or whatever would like to thank the families.
Yeah, I think that's all it says.
Yeah. Brilliant. And each one of those, like all the subsequent ones that came out, were really, really strong. And every one of them introduces a new found footage technique, various cameras that pop on, like motion cameras, to putting the camera on the circulating fan in the third one. I thought that was one of the smartest things any director ever did. So you got to you got to like wait for the camera to like slowly pan back around on a fan. Brilliant, man.
Was three the one that had the teen girl? Or was that 4? I can't
remember.
That
might have been 4.
That was 4. She was in
another family one.
She's a really good actor. She was in Freaky, which came out last year.
Which I didn't see, but
yeah, that's a fun movie, comedy. I guess comedy horror you call it.
Interesting. Plus, Paranormal Activity has that really convoluted or intricate chronology where like they're all the kids, are growing up, and you realize they have this backstory, and that was all very well done. That it's like a generational thing.
Yeah,
and you're kind of witnessing the same haunting through time. But they shot it out of sequence so that it's it doesn't feel chronological, basically.
Everybody probably has heard me talk about my favorite horror films of all time, but I would also throw into that mix Terrifier,
which I haven't seen yet. And I mean, I was just on like Instagram this morning, and the clown has become such a famous face. And
now that the second movie's coming out, so you got to catch up on the first one. And I went back and watched just last week All Hallows Eve, which was an anthology movie, which is where that character was first introduced, and that's where the director. That's a pretty good movie, All Hallows Eve. Wow, that is also pretty brutal movie. Yeah, Terrifier was kind of a cool throwback, but Terrifier has probably the single best, goriest scene I've ever seen scene in the
Really?
movie. Everybody who's ever seen it will know exactly what I'm talking about. I won't spoil it for you, but you got to have a strong stomach to watch it. But I think that everybody will. If it's kind of like this head exploding in Scanners, it'll be this
Yeah.
one scene that everybody remembers in Terrifier.
That was like a friend was asking me, do you remember Bone Tomahawk that Kurt
Oh
Russell was
yeah,
in?
yeah.
I really I like desert horror, and
Hmm.
when somebody was like, "What's so good about it?" And I was telling them everything I liked, and I was like, and at the end, it has probably the best human splitting scene I've ever seen, which I still think might be the case. I don't know.
That is it. That is it. A human splitting scene. Yeah, we
Yeah.
spoiled it. All right. Well, I guess anything else you want to add?
I'm, I mean, I could probably ramble on about this all afternoon,
Yeah,
but
I could
that's
too.
like
Once
the
I
list I
start talking
brought.
about it.
We hit a lot of the
Yeah.
points. So,
Yeah, I keep see. I've been keeping a list of every movie I watched since 2016 on IMDb.
yeah, I need
So
to do that. I need to use an app to track it because I just go into like my
yeah.
notes and literally punch them in. But I could keep much
Well,
better track.
most people use Letterboxd now, but I still like IMDb because I like the reviews on there, and I like that I can create my own lists of movies. So I have
Okay.
different lists for like zombie movies and
Yeah.
like some like hard horror, comedy horrors, and so I have everything. I'm very really weird that way, the way I
You're in the team.
categorize everything.
I just forget everything basically. So I was like scrambling before,
Yeah.
like yesterday. Like, God, what have I watched? I've only mentioned like 10% of what I've watched, but it just goes
Yeah.
right out the pipe.
Yeah, that's a problem. And I'm talking about my favorite movies that I've seen and ones that are memorable. But and that's the worst part about movies is that you can sort of remember the Munsters, these really bad ones, and you can remember the really good ones. But
Yeah,
man, 90% of the movies I watch, I just forget,
almost
and then
immediately forget.
they're
Yeah,
just gone. And it's not that they're a bad film; it's just that
yeah,
they're not a good film. They're just like in the moment, they're perfectly acceptable and they do
yeah.
their job and they entertain me for a couple hours and that's it.
Yeah, exactly. No, and that's the vast majority of horror. Is like that.
Yeah.
I always say quality is kind of questionable in horror. That's not exactly why we watch it. So
No.
you get your horror fix, but yeah, like I said, it's very like watching a football game. You're probably gonna forget it like
Yeah.
literally the following morning. Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah, totally. I don't even know who was in the Super Bowl last year, even though
yeah,
I watched
right.
it. I
I
have
would watch those
no
back to
idea.
back grade to remember. So, yeah,
All
but
right.
I'm definitely gonna watch more.
Ethan, it was great talking to you about this. We should do this maybe like a mid-year horror movie catch up or something. That would be
I'm up
fun.
for it, man. I am. I'll keep a better list next time.
Yeah, yeah. Do use IMDb, or you should try Letterboxd. Because then Letterboxd is like a social media type. People
Okay.
comment on your stuff, but I
Oh,
tried it. But wasn't
that's
for
about the
me.
same, man. Me and you get enough comments as it is. Like maybe I'll.
Yeah, I know. I don't need that distraction.
Yeah, that's
All
right.
right, man. I'll talk to you later. Thanks everybody for watching this.